Good evening, Erie, or as we call it at the Jefferson, the capital of the universe. And being a capital of the universe, you need a global summit that is worth being the capital of the universe. So thank you all for being here. My name is Frederick P. I'm the president of the Jefferson Educational Society. Thank you. Think of me a little bit of as like the credits at the end of the movie, you know? It's a big production. There's a lot of people to be thanked. So that's my role for tonight. First, I have to start with the best team in town, our staff at the Jefferson. They are wonderful, led by our Vice President, Ben Spagan. And our Board of Trustees, which is the force behind the Jefferson. I know Dr. Gaucher is somewhere here. He's the chairperson of our board. Thank you, Dr. Gaucher, and all the work you do. We have legions of volunteers, and we couldn't do this work without them. Also, the team here at the Convention Center. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do. Our partners at the Warner Books, they have signed copies of the books. So purchase them right after the talk. They'll be out there in the lobby. And of course, our sponsors. I tell this every year. There is no inflation at the Jefferson. The tickets at the Global Summit have been $25 in 2009, and they remain that in 2025. And that is because of our sponsors, ladies and gentlemen. And here with us we have Lincoln Recycling. I saw Mary and Jeremy here. Oh, there they are. Hey guys, thanks for all your support. Logistics Plus with Jim and Derek and all the work they do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My friend Sarah McWilliams, she's here with us. Thank you so much for all your support. Erie Insurance and Tim and Christy for all the work that you do for us. Thank you so much. And of course, we at the Jefferson, we refer to him as Captain Erie, Captain Tom Hagen himself. Thank you for all you do for us. But there is one partner that has been with us since the beginning, and they've been our lead sponsor for all of these years. I tell Dr. John Ferretti and Sylvia Ferretti all the time that if they could do what they did, which is they built the biggest medical school in the country, right here in Erie, Pennsylvania, then why couldn't we have the best conference in the country right here in Erie, Pennsylvania as well? And here to say a few words is, on behalf of LECOM, is Monsignor Rubino. Monsignor?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much. We want to congratulate and thank the Jefferson Education Society for hosting the 17th Global Summit, highlighting the importance of civic education as well as addressing many of our own problems and challenges. We appreciate what they do. We appreciate what the Jefferson Society teaches us. As Ricky said, Jefferson and LECOM have been partners in this educational enterprise for years. We appreciate the opportunity to be part of the Jefferson. We appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Striving to understand our world, and even beyond our world, as we do tonight, deepens our knowledge of ourselves and of the universe. As Neil deGrasse Tyson reminded us in his Wall Street Journal article of September 7th, 2022, was called The Power of a Cosmic Perspective. And he wrote, Knowledge of the universe fosters accountability for all that we do by preventing us from either crediting or blaming the sky for our earthly affairs. He notes, as Shakespeare wrote in Julius Caesar, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in the stars, but in ourselves." Our guest tonight reminds us to look up and discover, and then look down and learn what we have from up and solve our problems. So it's my distinct pleasure now to introduce to you Dorothy Lemus from our good friends at Erie Insurance. Captain Tom is here tonight, who will introduce Neil Tyson deGrasse.
Thank you, Monsignor. So since they gave me the microphone after a priest, I thought it was right to start with a confession. I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I'm guessing a lot of you are nerds too. I'm the kind of nerd that gets really excited about eclipses, the Milky Way, and really just any excuse to look up at the night sky. So you can imagine how thrilled I am that tonight we get to welcome one of the most recognizable and engaging scientists of our generation to the Jefferson Global Summit stage here in Erie, Pennsylvania. Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson was born and raised in New York City and went on to earn degrees from Harvard, the University of Texas at Austin, and Columbia, culminating in a PhD in astrophysics. He served on national space policy commissions and has been honored with the NASA Distinguished Public Service Medal. Whether you know him from his work at the Hayden Planetarium or his many books, podcasts, and television appearances, you'll find that he is one of the rare science communicators who can make the universe make sense to the rest of us. So whether you came here tonight because you're curious about the universe or just because a nerd in your life told you that this was going to be fun, you're in for a treat. Please join me in welcoming to the Global Summit Speaker Series the always bold, brilliant, and curious Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Thank you. About 18 of you gave me a standing ovation. Thank you. I'll work on the rest of the room by the end. Maybe I'll earn it for the rest of them. Thank you. This is my first time in Erie, Pennsylvania, but perhaps more significantly than that, it's my first time ever bearing witness to Lake Erie. So try not to take that for granted, that you have a really great lake in front of you. That's a great lake, I think. Also, not enough can be said, I think, for the fact that this program, this organization, the Jefferson Educational Society, is a force of community in your town. And not all towns have that. And when they don't have it, it shows. People, they're not together, they don't think communally. And so just don't ever take that for granted, that you have such a force of organization in your own town. Just want to put that out there. Okay. So I guess that's what I'm talking about, this just in, latest discoveries in the universe. I can give any one of a dozen possible talks. And they're handed to the organizer, and they pick. they pick which talk they want to hear. And this one it's always ready for you because it's the latest discoveries. But there are other talks I give. One of my favorite personal talks is an astrophysicist goes to the movies. Yeah, I spend the whole time just railing on the bad science in the movies. But there's some good science too. So another one is called the cosmic perspective. That's probably the philosophically deepest talk that I give. So if I'm happy to come back, we'll see. We'll see. That won't be up to me. It's up to you. All right, so let's do this. All right. This just cosmic stuff you may have missed if you haven't been looking up lately. And that's where I work. That's the Hayden Planetarium in New York City. You are all invited. If you just tell them at the front desk that you attended this, they'll still charge you $25, but they'll smile at you and you'll have everything. If you do not recognize those icons across the bottom of that slide, it means you probably read, is what I'm thinking. That's all. That's just, so don't worry about them at all. I have a table of contents, so you'll know exactly where you are in this talk at all times. First, some housekeeping. Then you get an update on the North Pole. You didn't know that required an update, did you? Reuben Observatory, orbital debris, update on Artemis. We have some interstellar visitors, spend a moment on that. Asteroid defense. We just discovered the biggest known star in the galaxy. A comment on the total solar eclipse of last year. And a couple of notable deaths. Again, it's this just in, so this is like current events all evening. All right, just some housekeeping. So I'm an academic. Anytime an academic is invited to give you a talk, it's often just a loosely veiled commercial for a book they're trying to sell you. And so this is not really any different from that. So this one did really well, and it's a kid's version of it for tweens, aged like 7 to 11. This one is 600 pages. That's if you're not in a hurry, you can read that one. That's the other, Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. That has my life's wisdom in it. To Infinity and Beyond, that's will we ever go to the moon? And then we get to the moon, and then you think about the next thing to do, Transcending Infinity. This is a Q&A book that came out last year, Merlin's Tour of the Universe. And this is its sequel that came out 7 days ago. Yes. This evening, some of these books were offered for sale by Werner Books. Werner Books, local indie bookstore. Indie bookstore. You could all buy your books on Amazon. No one's stopping you, and you'll make the bald man richer for doing so. Or you can keep the money in the hood, okay? And all the books, I don't know if they sold out before now, but they'll be available after. I've signed all of them with my expensive fountain pen. But if beyond this, you wanted to find more books or other books, my home institution also has them available, and I've made an arrangement with them to pre-sign any book that you get from them. Now, here's the crassest thing I'm going to do tonight, okay? Just really crass. Just, here it is. It's just crass. It's crass. If you do not know what to do with this image, ask someone half your age sitting near you. They will tell you what to do, okay? So all books through that website, that's a website, are signed. And that's value added to whatever you would otherwise discount you would get on Amazon. So So there you have it. How about more housekeeping? You know, I had a whole thing I was going to put in here about aliens, but I was told to keep the talk short, so I took it out. You want me to slip that back in? You want me to slip that back? All right, let me see if I still have it here. Yeah, okay. All right, let's do this. Ready? Okay. We're going to now have a public service message from the James Webb Space Telescope on UFOs. Okay? Okay. I had originally cut this from the talk, just so you know. All right, here we go. The James Webb Space Telescope, that's how big it is. That's me standing in front of it at a space conference in Colorado Springs. That entire thing was folded up into the fairing of a rocket, launched to 1,000,000 miles beyond the moon. And that's where it is parked, in one of the Lagrange points, where the gravitational forces are stable. And so that's the size of it. Here's an image that it took. The Carina Nebula, the level of detail is just extraordinary. Now we can ask, how much of the sky is this? So here's a zoom out from that image so you can get an idea of how small piece of the sky that actually is. So check this out. That's what we were looking at. James Webb Space Telescope. There are other images of gas clouds. This is the Eagle Nebula, 7,000 light years away. This is the heart of the Eagle Nebula. Some have called this the pillars of creation because stars are born inside these gas clouds. Stars are gas. Where do they get their gas? From the stellar nursery in which they were born. Some have even called this the hand of God, if God had 3 fingers. But that's, Monsignor, sorry, we got to call this. Father. Confession is later. We'll go to that after. So that's the detail we're getting, 7,000 light years away. You can even zoom in on this picture and you see other gas clouds where other stars are being born in our own universe, in our own, oh, sorry, that's a Chinese spy balloon. I forgot. I was going to remove that. Sorry. It was way off the slide, and I never see it, and I forget about it. Anyhow, these are the level of detail that we have. So you're telling me that your best evidence for aliens is a fuzzy monochromatic tic-tac on a screen from a Navy pilot. That's your best evidence. In our own atmosphere. I know, we just have to zoom in on it, don't we? Yeah, let's just zoom in and look at all. Oh, wait a minute, what's that there? Oh. There they go, there's the alien, yeah. We've had congressional hearings on this. And they come in front and they pinky sweared in front of everybody that they're telling you the truth, relying on eyewitness testimony. And Congress met. And I'm thinking if space aliens were actively visiting Earth, we would not need congressional hearings to establish that fact. I'm just thinking. Here's the real issue. 4 billion images and 1 million hours of video are uploaded to the internet every day. Are there any sharp images of aliens? They're always fuzzy lights and nobody has any better data. Get me started on this. I should have left it out. Now I'm all hyped up. These images and hours of video is high resolution. Everybody's got a high resolution camera on their hip. Oh, I got one here. Here you go. Here. There's a high resolution image of an alien. There you go. There you go. Show me that, then we can talk. Don't just swear in Congress you've got aliens in a locked box in your back room. Do you realize, scientifically, if you have an alien locked in a box in the back room that you're not showing anyone, that's the same thing as having no alien in a locked box that you're not showing anyone. Can I get back to the talk now? Okay. Where was I? All right. Again, it's current events. North Pole update. All right, as you may remember, Earth has a magnetic field. Okay? Now, I don't want to mess with your head here, but that's kind of the whole point, I guess. So, if you had a compass, anyone here over 50 knows what a compass is, okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, turn to the person who's twice your age and get it explained to you later, okay? A compass has a needle that's magnetized, and it's on a dial that has, the compass directions, and you'd hold it up, and the north pole of the compass would point to the north magnetic pole of the Earth. If you get a magnet, like a bar magnet, and hang it from a string, I've done this, the north will point to Earth's north pole. But wait a minute, in magnetism, opposites do what? Attract. Opposites are what attract. So if the north pole of your magnet is pointing north on Earth, it means Earth's south magnetic pole is in our north. Because opposites attract. They didn't tell you that in the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, did you? All right, that pole is not aligned with the rotating pole. By the way, it's even flipped several times in the past. People confuse those. They heard, the pole is going to flip and Earth is going to be... These are people who need more science in their lives, okay? Who are thinking this way. Anyhow, the pole moves. When I was growing up, it was kind of moving and lost in northern Canada. And it's been making a beeline, and it's just passed the geographic pole a few years ago. You see all the dots accumulated over on the left. It spent like 100 or so years just wandering around northern Canada. And now it's moving fast. We have a liquid core in the Earth. And that iron core, which is magnetic, it drives a magnetic field. And so whatever it's doing, it affects the magnetic pole. It's passing the magnetic pole. Let's zoom in on that. And it's actually headed towards Siberia. So pretty soon, Putin will own the North Magnetic Pole. Won't that be great for geopolitics right there? So I just thought I'd catch you up on that fact. It has passed the geographic North Pole on its way to the other side of the world. So just sort of remember that. All right. The Reuben Observatory. Ooh, this is a remarkable facility. It's in the Chilean desert. It's large, nearly 9,000 feet up. The telescope is in the part that sticks up, that round thing. The rest of that building is a data processing center. It is acquiring more data than human beings can acquire and process and understand. So AI is fundamental to what's going on here. It's taking 15-second exposures every 20 seconds of the entire night sky. 30 terabytes of data per night. It's going to run for 10 years. It's going to image half the sky every 3 days. 500 petabytes of total data. It's going to be taking a movie of the night sky. Think about it. When I coming up, I would go to the telescope. I'd take images of my object of interest, and I'd take it back to my office, and I'd study the image. Well, suppose something was moving, and I wouldn't know. It would just still be a dot because I took a short image. But if you monitor the sky, you can get to see if things move. Oh, by the way, if you don't know what petabytes are, terabytes, so we're on the same page. Here we go. Metric prefixes. Who here remembers when the United States tried to go on the metric system? Old timers, I'm an old timer. I'm like half gray, but I tint it because the gray is coming in mangy patches around, and I look like I have a skin disease. It'd be very distracting for you. So one day it'll be all gray, and I'll come in like Morgan Freeman with a gray afro. That's what I'll do. Anyhow, that was, what president was that under? Yeah, Jimmy Carter. Old timers remember this. And it largely failed. And I think it could have been successful if they ran it a little differently. One day a week, that's all. You bring in the drug dealer who's completely fluent in the metric system. What is a kilo? And they'll show you a kilo of heroin or cocaine. You know, don't keep them there too long, but just so that kids know that, like, the metric system is useful. All right, so kilo is 1,000, mega. Remember when powerful computers had megabytes in them, right? Then it's giga. We all should have terabyte computers now. Next is peta, then exa, zeta, and yota. Not Yoda, yota. And there's more, but that's all that fit on the slide. So the Reuben camera will be going 500 petabytes, and it's the largest digital camera ever made. 3.2 gigapixels. You need a large camera. It is the size. Sorry, it's not that whole opening. It's the size of the bluish thing in the middle there. But it's the size of a human being, basically. And you need a large camera to get large swaths of area. And here, from the website, you will see what kinds of things it will discover. Things moving that go bump in the night. Previously, we would have never noticed this. Every one of these objects is a brand new asteroid, never before seen or cataloged. This is the second night that the telescope was turned on. We're up to night 4, night 5, night 6, 2,000, that's the area of the sky that it's on. That is the direction through space that it sees in that one set of data. And some of those asteroids, their orbits cross the orbit of Earth. So yeah, kind of want to know, you want to know about those. Here's something interesting. When you're time sampling data, taking a video, you have to be careful. Because if you're not, it can make things that change look like they're not changing at all. And it can make things that are not changing look like they're changing. So for example, here is security cam footage of someone's short driveway. And just check this out. Okay, here it is. That's completely crazy. If we sent a video camera to a planet and we saw a creature come across, we would say, wow, it flies without flapping its wings. I wonder what special powers of anti-gravity that it has. And we would be trying to answer it when what's going on is the frame rate exactly matches the wing rate. So it's only catching the wings in the bottom because it exactly matches up. So we would wrongly conclude what's going on there. And let's take a helicopter, for example. We know what helicopters look like and sound like. Helicopter, what happens if the frame rates match up? Then you get this. You always have to be careful of what, of what your data is showing you. So with the Vera Rubin telescope, we have to be very careful. Even though we're catching movement, we want to make sure we're not being fooled by some frame rate that matches something phenomenon that's there. And because it's so good at finding things that go bump in the night, it became a national security risk. It will see our spy satellites. And so the Department of Defense, okay? We're just astrophysicists, that's all, trying to get data off the night sky. And it's not my fault your satellite's in the way. So the head of the observatory reached an agreement with the Department of Defense so as not to compromise national security. One of the books that went quickly by on the screen that I wrote is called Accessory to War, The Unspoken Alliance Between Astrophysics and the Military. Ooh. Yeah, there's very strong alignment between what the military cares about and what astrophysicists care about. You know, unlike the physicists, we don't make the bombs, no. But we care about multispectral imaging of dim objects that move across the sky. So does the military. So it's a 600-page book that explores the history of that exercise. Let's keep going. Satellites and their orbital debris. Well, here's a cool image here. So I don't know if you can see on all the 4 screens, but in the upper right, you see a set of dots in a line like pearls on a string. Those are not stars, those are satellites. Now again, if you have never had physics or astronomy, or if you've never looked up or anything like that, you'll call the police and say, aliens are coming. It's interesting that people conclude they're aliens after they conclude that they don't know what they're looking at. I see a UFO. What does the U stand for? Unidentified. You just confessed that you don't know what you're looking at. You can't then, in the next breath, say, it must be aliens. All right, here's an interesting fact. This was on the internet, and these satellites mysteriously disappeared. So that added to fueled people's thoughts that maybe they're aliens. These are people that don't know that Earth at night has a shadow in space cast by the sun. You would learn this in Astro 101. So here come the satellites. These are, of course, Elon's satellites. And here they come. There'll be 22 of them. And Earth is casting a shadow in space. So if I'm right, these satellites, which are all set into motion from a single launch, all deployed, that's why I have the same orbit, they will enter our penumbra, which is a partial shadow, before they go into our umbra, Latin for shade, which is where we get the word umbrella from. The umbra, and then where they will disappear completely. So let's check this out. There go the satellites. The crickets add a nice little flavor here. So these are either Elon's Starlink satellites or they're aliens realizing we're looking at them and they put on their cloaking device. One of those is what this is. So these are, we want to be looking for asteroids, not Elon's satellites with our telescopes. So this is a data problem because this becomes data noise relative to what it is we seek. And how much debris is out there? Oh my gosh. Oh, sorry, let me, hang on. Okay, so watch. What I'm going to show you now is every satellite ever launched from 1957 through today. Old timers, what happened in 1957? Sputnik, thank you. So there was a year where there was only one satellite orbiting the Earth. Well, in the lifetime of people in this room. Okay, so watch the bottom right corner. It's the date. In this image, it's 1957. Sputnik is not launched. 1958, 59, up to 65, 1970. 75, 1980, 85, 2000. So the strings of satellites, we call them constellations, they hadn't yet been launched, but you should see one pretty shortly. We're up to 2015. Watch for one. There goes one. So now you know the real reason why aliens don't visit us. It's like, what are you doing? And by the way, these are satellites we care about. And each of these satellites leave rocket parts and paint chips, and astronauts have lost wrenches. So there's debris up there. 28,000 chunks of debris bigger than a softball. 500,000 the size of a marble. 100 million the size of a pea. And it's all traveling 5 miles per second in space. This will kill you if you encountered one of them. The debris on top of all the satellites is dangerous. NASA has a website completely devoted to track. These are not satellites now. This is debris. And right in the middle there, that's the debris in low Earth orbit. And then you have sort of middle Earth orbit, the middle ones. And then there's the outer one, which is the geosynchronous orbit. That's where our communication satellites are launched. So forget the satellites. There's debris. We, if I may use the expression, are peeing in our own bathtub. Eight-year-olds know what I'm talking about out there. So this is a problem. It's a problem for us, the safety of our own astronauts. It's a problem for astrophysics because I want to find the asteroids that's coming, and I don't want a satellite debris masquerading as that in my data. So watch this space. This is current events right now, just so you know. Let's keep going. We are going back to the moon. NASA was early woke in this exercise. The original moon program was called what? Apollo. This one is called Artemis. Do you remember your Greek mythology? Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo. That's some woke stuff right there. Yeah. So we're going back to the moon. Do you know why we're going back to the moon? I'll tell you. Because we could have stayed there in 1972, but we didn't. How about 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010? No. Artemis gets announced in the middle 20-teens. In fact, it gets announced under Trump 1. Okay? Biden comes into office. He doesn't cancel that program. Even though he doesn't like Trump, doesn't cancel the program. That stayed. And it gets handed over to the next president. So, what's going on here? It turns out support for NASA is uncorrelated with your political affiliation. If you support NASA, that's not enough information to know if the person voted Republican or Democrat. NASA was cleverly conceived in this way. NASA has 10 centers in 8 states. And those 8 states variously vote 4 red, 4 blue, 5 red, 3 blue, 3 red, 5 blue. NASA is embedded in the political spectrum of the country. So that's how it can start under Trump and then go forward and still be funded through variations in presidency. So was Trump just sort of space brilliant to say this and do this? Or was there some other force? There was some other force. Why did we go to the moon in the first place? Was it because we're explorers and we're discoverers and it's in our DNA? No. I will quote May 25th, 1961, 6 weeks after Russia had put Yuri Gagarin into orbit, the first human in orbit. Not the first life form. They sent a dog before that and some chimpanzees. So in fact, Yuri Gagarin was the 4th mammal to reach orbit, if you want to count it in that context. All right, 6 weeks after that, we didn't have a ship yet that could launch a human being without blowing up on the launch pad. President Kennedy announces to a joint session of Congress, if the events of recent weeks couldn't even utter the man's name, if the events of recent weeks are any indication of the impact of this adventure on the minds of men everywhere, then we need to show the world the path of freedom over the path of tyranny. It was a battle cry against communism. We can't have these godless communists beating us at anything. But they were already beating us. So he said, let's go to the moon. That'll show them. That's not how that episode is remembered. It's remembered more nobly than that. Better for our ego. Better for our morality to say we're just explorers. We're Americans. That's what we do. No, we do it when we're motivated, usually with a geopolitical force operating. So, we get to the moon, 1969, send a few missions there. We look over our shoulder. Where's Russia? Oh, they're not there. We don't have to keep coming back. So we stopped. And it had nothing to do with charisma of a president or anything. It was no longer geopolitically expedient to do so. We are going back to the moon now because in 1915 or 16, China says they want to put taikonauts on the moon. That's their word for astronaut. And we said, the moon is our place, that we put a flag there, so we're going back to the moon. You're gonna have to part the curtains to find China as the motivation for it. I'm just telling you, that's the motivation, okay? I wrote a whole book on this. It's called Space Chronicles, Facing the Ultimate Frontier. That's the title it was published with. That's not the title I submitted. The title I submitted was Failure to Launch, The Dreams and Delusions of Space Enthusiasts. And the publisher said, no, we can't have failure in the title, and they got all cold feet on it. So anyhow, in that book, there's the whole it's everything I know about our past, present, and future of space exploration. Anyhow, Artemis, it's got a logo there. There you go. And what's on the plan? Artemis 1 was already launched, uncrewed to the moon. We no longer say unmanned because there are women on there. Artemis 2 is not yet launched. That's supposed to have astronauts go to the moon and come back but not land. Artemis 3 is going to go to the moon and land in the South Pole. There's an Artemis 4 and Artemis 5 that brings in other private enterprise, building a space station, a lunar base. So it's very lofty. It's very, we're planning a lot there. I will call to your attention the fact that from when the program was announced in the mid-2016s until we finally land on the moon in 2027, that's longer than the time between Kennedy said, let's go to the moon, and when we landed on the moon. So things are slower. But this can speed up if we want to. And President Trump, through his forcing, the head of NASA said, we'll get to the moon faster than this schedule because China upped their schedule, okay? So we don't want to lose to China. So it's a new space race, basically. And how big is this rocket that we're sending? That's the rocket. And so you want to know how big that is? I will show you. So I'm from New York, so the Statue of Liberty is a meaningful sort of size reference. But that's not the correct size reference. I'm just putting it up there so you can see. That's the size of the rocket. The rocket is mostly fuel, as is the case in these things. And they're boosters, and it's mostly fuel. And in there, the astronauts on a little bitty the capsule. There they go, the astronauts in the capsule. There they go. So they're basically sitting on top of a liquid bomb. No talk would be complete without a rocket launch. Here's the rocket launch of Artemis 1. Again, it was uncrewed, but it was a test of the vehicle. And what I want you to look for is, on the countdown, the main rocket, the main engine is orange, that's in the middle. It contains 2 tanks, one twice as large as the other within its own volume. One of those tanks, the large one, contains liquid hydrogen. The other contains liquid oxygen. They merge the hydrogen and oxygen together to get what? Water. Remember the chemical symbol for water? H2O. So it turns out when you bring hydrogen and oxygen together to make water, it releases energy. It's rocket fuel. The water isn't. That's what's left over afterwards. So the exhaust of this is water. You can't get more green than that. But the hydrogen is highly flammable, and they worry that some of it might leak. So at the beginning, they say, if there's a pocket of hydrogen and these engines ignite, it might blow up. So they send sparks across the base of the launch. The sparks eat up any stray hydrogen that's there so that when they ignite the engines, nothing blows up beneath it. Second fact, the engines are so powerful that they create stupendous vibrations in the launch pad. So they dump a bajillion gallons of water into this huge swimming pool below the rocket, and the water absorbs that energy, also evaporating into the air. So watch for the sparks, watch for the water to get dumped. And here it is, rocket launches for me never get old.
Counting down to liftoff of Orion on its maiden voyage to the moon. Launch team can no
20.
longer recycle the count. Sound suppressor water now flowing
15.
under the ML. And here we go.
There's the
10.
spark.
Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiated. 7.
There's the water.
6. 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
All 4 RS-25 engines on the core stage and 2 solid rocket boosters now propelling the vehicle at 128 miles per hour. Hearing good control on the roll from teams in Mission Control Houston. All good calls so far. Now 30 seconds into the flight of Artemis 1. First milestone will be for the vehicle to pass through max Q at about 1 minute and 9 seconds into launch. This is the greatest period of atmospheric force on the rocket. SLS now traveling 607 miles per hour. You're looking at 8.8 million pounds of maximum thrust. Quiet here in the loops in mission control. The 4 core stage engines are throttling down ahead of passing through max Q. Now 1 minute, 21 seconds into the flight, traveling at 1,420 miles per hour. The 4 core stage engines are back at maximum thrust. The next major milestone will be for the solid rocket boosters to cut off and jettison at about 2 minutes and 11 seconds into the flight, so about 30 seconds from now. Again, quiet here in Mission Control Houston as teams continue monitoring the flight of Artemis 1.
Never gets old. So right about here, it was approaching Mach 3, 3 times the speed of sound. There's something you might have heard, max Q. You've heard that? Let me just spend a minute to explain max Q, because it's a fascinating thing that happens. All right. The rocket on the launch pad, so where is the atmosphere the thickest? It's right at sea level. It's launching from Florida, and all of Florida is at sea level. Okay. That's devastating news for Florida. I'm just letting you know. Florida has the lowest, highest elevation of any state. What they call a mountain, we call a hill. All right, the air is thickest there. How fast is the rocket going on the launch pad? 0. So, as the rocket gains speed and ascends, the atmosphere gets thinner. There is a single point in its arc where the speed through the atmosphere and the thickness of the atmosphere at that point creates the greatest stress on the vehicle. That's max Q. If something's going to break, it's going to break there, as it did with Challenger back in the 1980s. You are go for throttle up after it had just passed max Q, that's when it broke. Because max Q would have happened sooner if it's going really fast at sea level, but it doesn't have speed yet. And it's going way faster high up, but the air is thin. It's that one point where those two forces maximize, max Q. So there it is, that was Artemis 1. Where are they headed? They're going to the South Pole. Because that's the new place of interest on the moon. If you're near any pole of a planet, the sun never gets very high in the sky. Just never gets very high. There are craters where the rim is sufficiently high that the sunlight never reaches the bottom of the crater. It is in permanent darkness. It is literally where the sun don't shine. If you're 12 or under, ask a grown-up to explain that to you. If someone says, shove this where the sun don't shine, they don't mean put it in a crater on the moon. Okay? So that's interesting because when the moon, that's clearly been hit by comets and asteroids before. If you're hit by a comet, which is mostly water, the water molecules scatter onto the surface, and if the sunlight hits them, they'll evaporate away into space. But if molecules of water land in the center of a crater where the sun don't shine, the water is permanent. It will never evaporate. It's called a cold trap, and there's billions of years of collected water molecules there. If you go to the moon and retrieve that water, you can drink it, separate the hydrogen and oxygen, that gives you what? Rocket fuel. And so everyone is headed to the South Pole. And so this is an artist rendering of people working there. And the shadows are not quite as long as they should be drawn. The artists, we try to clue the artists into what they should draw, but they don't always pay attention. By the way, we're not the only ones who went to the moon. China went to the moon. Oh, China's headed to the moon. No, China. Did I say it right? China headed to the moon. China. China's got a flag on the moon. They got a flag on the moon. Let me tell you about that flag. Do you realize the moon has no atmosphere to protect its surface from ultraviolet light? Ultraviolet light is hostile to pigment. So any American flags on the moon today would be completely washed out. Plus, most of them had toppled over from the exhaust of the return stage from the lunar module. So our flags are not just standing proud with like eagles flying over them. They're dead, okay? This flag will be there forever because China figured out how to make threads out of basalt, which is a volcanic rock. It's an engineering technique. To make threads out of it, they make their flag out of basalt. And it say may remain for 10,000 years, try 1 billion years. So this spooks, members of Congress. We're feeling that like we felt, 65 years ago. And I was on CNN and I said, look, America, let's be honest with ourselves. We were hardly ever proactive at any of this, but we're really good at being reactive. Russia said they're going into space, we're going into space. We didn't initiate any of that, they did, but we responded, and we responded mightily. And we're happy just chilling until China says we're going back to the moon, and then we say, oh, let's go back to the moon. Once again, we are reacting. We are highly reactive. Only when we feel a real or perceived threat do we do things together. Otherwise, we're just arguing about everything in Congress. Well, I said this, that we're being reactive, on CNN, and the next morning I got name-checked by Marco Rubio in social media, who accused me of being a shill for China. This is a we-they thing, right? If you're with us, you're only going to say nice things, even if what you're saying is true, okay? So I was going to reply, But I said, no, I'd have to like jump into the trenches, and it's social media, which are those little icons at the bottom of my first slide. So I wrote a reply, but I relegated it to my forbidden Twitter file. These are tweets that I think up, and I say, no, I should not post that. Let me not. But here's what I was going to post. Okay, you can't tell anybody because I didn't post it, right? I was going to say, he's right. Black men from the Bronx make excellent Chinese spies. Yeah, that's what I was going to Let's keep going. Interstellar visitors. Again, this is current events. But that thing with Marco Rubio happened like 8 months ago or something. You're getting like live updates here. Interstellar visitors. What are those? Let's go back 8 years. We discovered an object coming from deep space, coming from interstellar space. We always knew we might have one of these visitors, but our telescopes weren't good enough, and we weren't scanning the skies as thoroughly as we currently are. We finally discovered an object that is not attached to the sun, and it's just blowing through. It was discovered on a Hawaiian telescope. We gave it a Hawaiian name, Oumuamua. Translated from the Hawaiian language means messenger, or scout coming first, so first scout. Hence the repeated Oumuamua. It's a scout, the first scout among scouts. This is an artist rendering based on very sketchy data that we were able to get for it. But here's something interesting. Its path through the solar system, it'll feel the sun. It'll feel the sun. The sun's gravity, but it's not going to stop. It's going to keep going. So when we looked at its trajectory, we said, wait a minute, what's going on? So here's this inner solar system, and in comes Oumuamua, boom! And it's on its way out of the solar system because it's not staying, and there's the trajectory we expected it to take, and then there's the actual trajectory that it took. So is it disregarding the laws of gravity? Well, if it's a comet, we know that comets can outgas. And when you outgas, you affect the trajectory in ways that are not gravitational. And so a colleague of mine who is alien adjacent they go out of their way to say he's from Harvard, because otherwise no one would believe it. But I was never into pedigree. You should believe it because they make sense, not because of pedigree, ever. But he published a research paper on Oumuamua. Had good analysis in it, trying to understand how come it wasn't following Newton's laws of gravity. Could solar radiation pressure explain Oumuamua's peculiar acceleration? This is science speak for it's following a path we don't expect. And he's got his student there as first author, that's fine, okay? And he did some good, this is an actual research paper. This is not a journal. And so he did, there are equations in there, and there's good physics, good thermodynamics. It's just a few pages long, just a few pages. He did his homework. I'm not faulting him for that. However, after he did all his homework, in one of the last paragraphs, he says, alternatively, a more exotic scenario is that Oumuamua may be a fully operational probe sent intentionally to Earth by aliens. The press lost their mind on this. They couldn't get enough of it. Couldn't get enough. So people started illustrating, Again, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean you understand it. If you can't explain the acceleration, if you say if aliens, it's really aliens of your ignorance that you're invoking. The urge is strong. So Oumuamua is titled 2017, the year it was discovered. It was the first interstellar object, so that's the one eye, Oumuamua. And then, a couple of years later, we found the second such object, 2I, that's an asteroid. And then, just this year, 2025, 3I, so it's 1I, 2I, 3I. Atlas is it's an acronym for the discovery project that made the discovery. So that's a comet. So that's what we have. And I have a nice picture of it. You know, here it is. It's got a tail. And by the way, it's from outside of our solar system. We have good data on our own comets and asteroids and moons and planets. You come from somewhere else, I'm going to expect that we don't know everything about it. That's what science is for. And so there'll be some new things that require we scratch our head. But you want to say, aliens are coming, okay, it's clickbait, but nobody else is saying that about this object, but Avi Loeb and his group. So that's just letting you know that. I get frantic emails from people and texts saying, Neil, are the aliens going to land? Are they coming? Are they on board 3I Atlas? And they're all because of this alien-adjacent colleague that I have. So I would love me to meet some aliens, but I would put that just lower on the likelihood list than he and all the press and all the clickbait and all the public that is following this object. It is still in the news. So check it out. All right, let's keep going. Asteroid defense. I kind of want to know who's going to come hurt us. And there's some bad asteroids out there. Here's one called Bennu. Bennu has 1 in 2,700 chance of hitting Earth in 2182. You say, oh, that's not very high odds. You realize there are people who go to Vegas and bet on worse odds than that, expecting to win. How big is Bennu? There it is. Bennu. It's a half a kilometer across. It would completely destroy a city if it hit. And we decided to go to that asteroid to see what it's made of. We went to that asteroid and grabbed a sample of its material. It's called a sample return mission. Launched right before Trump took office, and Trump won. And it encountered Bennu 4 years later, right? We're all in the middle of COVID. And we recovered the capsule 3 years after that, and the spacecraft kept going onto another asteroid that has us in our sights. That's going to make a close approach to Earth on April 13th, 2029, a Friday. Just saying. That asteroid is going to come so close, it's going to dip below our orbiting communication satellites. So we want to know about asteroids and what they're made of. So we went to this. Here is the footage of there's a touch and go. And in the touch and go, it jumps down, it punches the surface and pops back up, and asteroid material floats up. I mean, asteroids have very weak gravity, so it'll float for a while before it comes back. And in that time, it gathered it into a capsule that it attached to its side. So here's the actual footage of that. The actual footage. Here we go. That's the sound effects of it. It put it in a capsule. By the way, it stamps. This was not just some no mission. Were you paying attention when this happened? I don't know. Those are stamps. It's called OSIRIS-REx. The capsule was deployed on its path to Earth, and it landed in the Utah desert, and the asteroid material is inside that canister. We brought it back to the lab, opened the canister, of course, under controlled situations. And you can see, look carefully, you can see black dust along the ledge. And by the way, what did we find? Oh my gosh. Organic molecules in the dust of that asteroid. So even though asteroids took out the dinosaurs, we think of them as life-ending events. But in fact, they may have brought the original ingredients for life to Earth long ago. The takers away of life and the bringers of life. A thing about Bennu. Let me recite what Bennu was and still is. Are you ready? We created a space probe, launched it from Earth, a moving platform, to intersect an asteroid, a moving target, sending it into space where it will be when it gets there. It goes down to the surface of the asteroid, collects samples from it, puts it in a canister, comes back to Earth, deploys that canister onto the rotating Earth such that it lands in Utah. And then continues on to the next asteroid that could harm us. Yes, as a matter of fact, it is rocket science. And we have people walking among us, maybe even in this room, who say, I don't trust scientists. What do scientists know? I don't trust vaccines. Scientists said, I don't trust any scientist at all. Just what we do is know how the world works. That's all we do. No. Nearly every disaster movie you've ever seen began with government officials ignoring the warnings of scientists. As of May this year, we have 2,486 asteroids, known asteroids. We will add to this with the telescope, known asteroids whose orbits put us in harm's way. And here's that list, okay? Yeah, it just keeps going, sorry about that. Just want to know that we live in a shooting gallery and we're all gonna die. No, sorry. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Bennu's in here somewhere, let me see. Where's Bennu? Come to me, Bennu. Where are you? Every box here is a deadly asteroid. You know what's, yeah, there's Bennu. Yeah, RQ-36, discovered in 1999. Keep going, thank you. Okay, there we go. I'm just saying. You know what's spooky? If you go back to the year 1900, and you say, what are you most worried about for civilization? They would say smallpox. They would say maybe the population would outstrip the food supply. These are things they're worried about. If you ask now, we say, I'm worried about an asteroid. In 100 years, what are we going to be worrying about? What is happening now that could kill us all that everyone will know about in the year 2100? I don't know, and maybe I don't want to know. These are the asteroids known, the killer asteroids known in 1999. And let's move the clock forward. That's 1999, January. That's 2009, 10 years later. Our data are getting better, so we know that these are there. There's 2018. And the brown ones are asteroids that are stable in the asteroid belt. It's the aqua-colored ones that will eventually hit Earth in their orbits around the sun. So, Jet Propulsion Laboratory recently had to lay off hundreds of workers because we don't need to know about asteroids that would strike Earth. Who needs to know that? Of course. Let's keep going. Biggest star in the galaxy. Let's throw this in here, just, why not? Actually, this was 2 years ago, not just last year. 1,700 times larger than the sun. So his official name is UY Scuti. Scuti is the genitive form of the constellation in which this is found. It's a red hypergiant. I have a picture of it, but pictures are not very interesting. It's that object in the middle, of course. Here is if that's the size of the star, that's the sun. So if the sun were as big as UY Scuti, it would have engulfed the orbits of Mercury, Venus, and come very close to Earth. We would all be a charred cinder as we vaporize in our descent into the sun. Have a nice day. I checked the maps. You guys were in the path of totality. Oh! 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 This eclipse came right across America. So it's America's eclipse. There you go. There you go. When this map was made, that was still the Gulf of Mexico. Just these historic maps. So I was invited to view this from Dallas. The eclipse path went right over Dallas, specifically over the Cotton Bowl. Over the Cotton Bowl. And I have to shed some of my resistance to doing anything related to cotton in the South. That's a time gone by. This is the 21st century. Just saying. There was a comedian, a black comedian, who said he never wants to go into space. And he said, why? Because he didn't want to be in the space station and say, yes, NASA, no, NASA, oh, yes, NASA. He did not want to be caught that. All right, so here is Dallas. That's downtown Dallas. The red dot is the Cotton Bowl, relatively near the center line of totality. So that blue line is the width of totality, and the center line is where you maximize it. NASA and NOAA rented the Cotton Bowl to do an educational program there, and I was invited. So I said, yeah, but then that week, I'm looking at the weather, and it said it's going to be cloudy in Mexico up through Texas, but be clear in New England. That has never happened before, okay? New England doesn't boast of its clear skies. That's not a thing. So I was checking, and I was going to bring my podcast there, And at the last minute, I said, I can't do this. And I pivoted. I have a friend who owns a farm in Vermont, so we took the podcast to Vermont. And that's the path through the area of Vermont. But the location where my friend lived, you see the red pin, it's near the edge of the eclipse path. Near the edge, it's not in the middle. So the duration is not as long. And there's some other phenomenon, fascinating. During the eclipse, if you looked in that direction, you saw where it was not eclipse. That's the edge of the eclipse shadow, where the sun is still illuminating over on the horizon. So that's a fascinating juxtaposition of day and night. So I took my podcast there, StarTalk, and you know my primary host of StarTalk? Chuck Nice, yeah. So here we are. We're in the partial phases where we're wearing protective glasses.
Anybody else want one?
I would. Thank you.
Oh, hey, Chuck.
Hey, man.
Hey.
So,
Okay, now you can't look at the sun any other way
right.
except through these protective glasses.
Yes. And, you know, during an eclipse, you know what they say.
What?
Never look directly at Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Chuck Nice being Chuck Nice. Here are the data we obtained. By the way, so was it clear here? So you all saw, yeah, I mean, okay, now, I'm going to tell you. If you ask people, have you ever seen a total solar eclipse? If their answer is, yeah, I think so, then it's no. Have you ever seen a total solar eclipse? Yeah, it was, then the answer is no. Have you ever seen a total solar eclipse? Oh my gosh, yeah, then the answer is yes. Okay, it is a bucket list item, and it came to you in Erie, Pennsylvania. Here, you all have seen this, but let me offer it to you here. You see the spots on the sun? We call those sunspots. That's how we roll in my field. Origin of the universe, space, time, and energy. Big Bang. That's called the diamond ring effect when it comes right out. So I've seen 5 or 6 total eclipses in my life, as early as when I was 14, off the coast of Northwest Africa. So put it on your list. In the old days, no one traveled. You can travel now. Just do it, okay? But you don't have to because you already saw one. Yes, so never mind. We're now on the last chapter. Notable deaths. We lost this past year William Anders. William Anders was on Apollo 8. Apollo 8, the first mission to the moon. They didn't walk, that's why you don't remember him or his fellow astronauts. He's the last living one on his team. Jim Lovell is dead, Frank Borman is dead. Apollo 8 was the first time we ever left Earth for a destination. They went to the moon, orbited the moon. It is they who took this photo, one of the most recognized photos in the catalog. It's called Earthrise over the lunar landscape. By the way, the moon always shows the same face to Earth. So if you're standing on the moon, Earth neither rises nor sets. The only way you get Earthrise is if you are orbiting the moon, as they were. I'm going to read a quote from Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14. Wait, hang on here. Hang on. They, hang on. I'm going to read a quote. I'm going to read a quote from Edgar Mitchell. He's a moonwalker. Upon seeing this, you develop an instant global consciousness, a people orientation, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, and a compulsion to do something about it. From out there on the moon, international politics looks so petty, you want to grab a politician by the scruff of the neck and drag him 250,000 miles out and say, "Look at that, you son of a bitch." They did something controversial. This mission was in December 2008, December 1968. And their mission enclosed Christmas Day. They're orbiting the moon on Christmas Day. On Christmas Eve, they did something kind of controversial. Unscheduled by the NASA communications channels, they took turns reading the first 10 verses of Genesis from the Bible. They took turns. You know the verses, okay? If you would have heard them if you didn't otherwise. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. Bill Anders is reading this. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. He handed off to Jim Lovell. And then Jim Lovell handed off back to Frank Borman. And God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place," called the dry land. You know, if not all of these, certainly some of these verses. And at the end they said, "And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth." So, the leading atheist of the day, Madeleine Murray O'Hair, upon hearing about this, who wants to separate religion from politics, she took it to court. It was kicked out of all the levels of lawsuits that she sought. I have no legal expertise, so I can't judge that. But I do know something about a cosmic perspective. I was alive when this happened, so I remember this. But if the me of today met the Madeleine Murray O'Hair of then, here's how the conversation would have happened. I speak first. Were you strapped to a Saturn V rocket with 9 million pounds of thrust and sent 250,000 miles away into deep space to witness Earth rise from lunar orbit on Christmas Eve? No. Then shut the fuck up. Let people feel what they feel. By the way, this man went to the moon and back, and he died in a plane crash a year ago. That's crazy. One more notable death. My mother. Notable to me, I suppose, not to you. You don't know her. She died 2 days before her 95th birthday. It was sad, but not tragic. You die at 95, that's not a tragedy. You live a full life. One of my episodes of StarTalk is a conversation I had with her on Mother's Day. So if you want to know a little bit about how she raised me, if you're curious, you can go to that. You can Google the episode, or that takes you right there. This mysterious box with squares in it. I'm going to end by reading for you the last paragraphs of this book, Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. Came out now 3 years ago. It contains my life's wisdom. I could not have written this book 10 years ago. I wasn't wise enough. I didn't have the gurgling wisdom that then had to be collected into such a volume. The chapter headings are things we argue with crazy relatives at Thanksgiving dinner. Truth and beauty, conflict and resolution, risk and reward, meat eaters and vegetarians. Yeah, I went there. Gender and identity, color and race, law and order, body and mind, life and death. It's what these subjects look like when you are scientifically literate with a dose of cosmic perspective. These conflicts that you have arguments over, it's not a matter of meeting in the middle. There might be a middle, but a cosmic perspective elevates the conversation outside of that. And you find places of agreement you didn't even know occupied the space above those arguments. That's what this book is about. And it's the last chapter, Life and Death. So I'll end with this recitation. If we can take the lights out, just take, and the stage. I'm not important here. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Do you really know how precious life is? The total number of people who have ever been born is about 100 billion. Yet the genetic code that generates viable versions of us is capable of at least 10 to the 30th variations. That astronomically huge number is a 1 followed by 30 zeros, providing 1,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000 possible souls, forcing the conclusion that most people who could ever exist will never even be conceived. Each of us, for all practical purposes, is unique in the universe, now and forever. Being alive is the time to celebrate being alive, every waking moment. On the whole, I don't fear death. Instead, I fear a life where I could have accomplished more. An epitaph worthy of a tombstone comes from the 19th century educator Horace Mann. I beseech you to treasure up in your hearts these, my parting words. Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity. Our primal urge to keep looking up is surely greater than our primal urge to keep killing one another. If so, then human curiosity and wonder, the twin chariots of cosmic discovery, will ensure that starry messages continue to arrive. These insights compel us, for our short time on Earth, to become better shepherds of our own civilization. Each of us is alive against stupendous odds. We won the lottery only once. We get to invoke our faculties of reason to figure out how the world works. But we also get to smell the flowers. We get to bask in divine sunsets and sunrises. and gaze deeply into the night skies they cradle. We get to live and ultimately die in this glorious universe. Thank you, Erie, Pennsylvania.